So thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. Today we'll be covering our Future Scope High Growth AI Accelerator for Innovate UK BridgeAI. So it's great to have you all with us. My name is Catherine Shreve, Innovation Delivery Manager at Digital Catapult, and I've been working to help set up and facilitate our accelerator programs for BridgeAI. So in this morning's webinar, you'll get a chance to hear more about our upcoming opportunity supporting the transport sector. You'll find out how to apply to the programme, what the benefits are, and hear from our industry challenge owners around their real-world problems that we'll look to address over the course of the programme. So to get started, we'll just move on to our agenda. So if we get the next slide. Thanks. So today we'll be hearing from Kirsty Downham on the accelerator to understand how we can apply, what the programme will cover. We'll then move on to hear from our industry challenge owners around their challenges in more detail. So we'll be hearing from Ryan Mears, Head of Operations at Port of Time, Harriet Gridley, Open Innovation Manager at Transport for London, Paul Bathgate, Principal Director at RailX. Then we'll recap the application and selection process and have some time for a Q&A at the end of the session to cover any questions you have from today's content. So moving on to the next slide, we will be giving a short introduction to Digital Catapult. If we could get the next slide. Oh, no. So Digital Catapult is focused on supporting UK businesses to accelerate the adoption of advanced digital technologies like AI. We do this by supporting businesses to develop new solutions for accelerator programs, testbed facilities, and consulting services. We look to help organizations grow their confidence in advanced digital technologies. One way we do this is through our BridgeAI program, which is a £100 million Innovate UK funded program working nationally to connect businesses with AI expertise, aims to build out new capabilities in the adoption of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we mainly focus on 4 key industries, which we've identified as having low current adoption rates, but a high growth potential in AI adoption. So we're looking at agriculture, creative, construction, and transport sectors. So this work is delivered in partnership with Alan Turing, the Hartree Centre, and the British Standards Institute and Innovate UK, where we have opportunities to learn about new AI standards, engage in research, join in educational workshops and webinars, receive support, and apply for funding opportunities from Innovate UK. So today we're here to learn about our latest transport accelerator. So I'll now pass over to Kirsty, who will be able to give us an insight into what you can gain and expect over the course of the programme.
Thank you, Catherine. So to quickly introduce myself, I'm Kirsty, an Innovation Coordinator at Digital Catapult, and I will now introduce the Future Scope High Growth AI Accelerator for BridgeAI. So Digital Catapult is leading acceleration activities within BridgeAI, overseeing a series of 5 accelerator programs between 2023 and 2025. This is the second accelerator program, and it is focusing on the transport sector. It highlights commercial challenges finalised in partnership with industry partners, aiming to foster the development of solutions that demonstrate clear advancements in technology, aligning with the UK's ambitious journey towards achieving net zero emissions. By unlocking the potential through a range of expertise and resources, the mission of this accelerator programme is to help enterprises to validate or develop scalable machine learning and artificial intelligence solutions. On Wednesday, the 14th of February, we launched the open call for this 14-week accelerator for UK-based startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. The programme comes with many benefits, including industry access and expertise, thanks to our challenge owners who we'll be hearing from shortly, computational power access from our cloud services and technology providers, diagnostic sessions with experts from the Digital Catapult team and industry challenge owners to address current AI, ML, technological, commercial, and strategic needs. You will get hands-on support to accelerate data and product readiness and to develop and improve product, technical, business, and ethical roadmaps. Group sessions covering diverse topics, including data readiness and maturity, regulatory compliance, investment readiness, and ethical best practices. And lastly, there'll be an opportunity to present your progress to industry representatives potential investors, and customers at our showcase. Alongside our industry challenge owners, we have two types of accelerator partners. Firstly, we have the cloud services and technology providers. These are organizations who are offering valuable resources and services, such as cloud computing credits or free access to their platforms, along with expertise to assist companies in their technical development. So they are Google Cloud Services, Yellow Dog, AWS, NVIDIA, and MongoDB. Then we have the regulatory and legal advisors. So these are organizations providing guidance and support in navigating regulatory compliance, legal frameworks, and industry standards. Their expertise ensure that companies operate within legal boundaries and adhere to relevant regulations. So we have the Information Commissioner's Office, the British Standards Institution, and Marks and Clerk. So now we will have the opportunity to hear about the challenges from the industry challenge owners. First, we will hear from Ryan Mears, Head of Operations at Port of Time, who will be introducing Container Placement Optimization Challenge. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, good morning, all. Could we play the first slide there, please?
The River Tyne and Port of Tyne have been the engine for change for hundreds of years, allowing the exchange of critical goods providing food, energy and manufacturing services. Its global reach and reputation have enabled the region to build and prosper. But the world we operate in is consistently evolving and changing. Our port recognises the need to help lead that change. New global challenges and opportunities mean, as one of the UK major trust ports, we're more vital in the economic and cultural prosperity in the region than ever before, and we're committed to that cause.
We're well on the way to delivering our Tyne 2050 goals, delivering a safer, smarter, greener future for our port, for the region and the industry.
Driven by our intentionally ambitious vision, we're pioneering a more sustainable future, with industry-leading initiatives like the UK Maritime Innovation Hub, the Clean Energy Testbed, supporting startup organisations with new technologies and innovations. Because we're no ordinary port, this is no ordinary river. Welcome to the Tyne, transformed.
Welcome everybody. I'm Ryan Mears, Head of Operations. I'm here today with Stephen Mulvane, who is a data analyst here at the port. Through my team and I, we are responsible, accountable for servicing, safely servicing a huge range of customers across the port. And it's great to be part of this Innovate UK event. And I'm excited to tell you all about the Port of Tyne and the challenge that we hope you'll help us to solve. So the opportunity in brief is using available data and machine learning to reduce the amount of unchargeable container moves that we do. To put that even simpler, we call those reorg moves, by the way. We want your help to help us reduce the number of reorg moves that we do in our container terminal. And the container terminal is shown in that slide there. Yeah, if you look right in the middle of that photograph, and if you look at 12 o'clock almost, that sort of slice of land that's down the middle there, that is the container terminal at the Port of Tyne. It is a large part of our organisation. Can you just skip to the next slide, please? Thank you. So today, our container terminal, we service around 25,000 containers per year. And there's a terminal storage capacity in that space of more than 5,000 TEU. We've got 31 full-time permanent team members in that department, and we can operate 24/7, 364 days of the year. It is a data-rich environment with a host of embedded systems. In terms of the constraints, we have the data, and where we need the help is we need the help with the resource and the skills to convert the data that we have into knowledge and then into better results. In terms of the results, from an environmental point of view, because of the heavy plant equipment that we've used there, there is a 150 tons of carbon generated per year as a direct result of this activity, these reorg moves. In terms of a financial impact, well, we measure that in hundreds of thousands in terms of cash. And in terms of the benefits, there are many benefits in terms of what the solution would unlock. From a safety point of view, we would benefit from a reduction in the amount or frequency of heavy plant movements. And through that, we would lower the level of associated risks to our colleagues and our workers. The environmental benefit, as I mentioned, in terms of 150 tons of carbon that we could reduce. We would improve profitability and sustainability of the organisation, and then employment would benefit. We would reduce our costs on vehicle maintenance and fuel. The challenge, as I've said, just to reiterate, is using available data to enable us to optimise our container terminal, in particular to reduce the number of unchargeable container moves that we do in that container terminal. In terms of the future, well, we do have an ambition to be carbon neutral for 2030, and just to finish off, we want to reduce those reorg moves from currently 35% to less than 20%. So thank you for your time and for listening, and we'll catch up in the question section. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Apologies about the audio issues at the start. We will now be hearing from Harriet Gridley, the Open Innovation Manager at Transport for London, and she will be presenting the Real-Time Monitoring Challenge.
Thank you, Kirsty. Hi, everyone. I'm Harriet, an Open Innovation Manager at Transport for London. So TfL, Transport for London, is the Integrated Transportation Authority, and we're responsible for managing the public transport network across Greater London. And this actually involves overseeing various modes of transportation. The obvious ones: buses, trains, the underground. We also look after the river services, the cycling infrastructure, and the road systems. So TfL plays a crucial role in the planning, the operating, and improving, essentially, the transportation network to ensure safe, efficient, and accessible travel for London residents and visitors. Next slide, please. So the challenge that we are presenting to you today concerns wheelchair users who are taking the bus. So our buses have been designed to have accessible areas for wheelchairs, as well as ramps at the middle doors to allow for ease when getting on the bus. And by law, wheelchair users have priority over the space, as it's actually the only place where they can safely travel. But when a wheelchair user is not using the space, buggy users and others can use it on a first come, first served basis. But our wheelchair passengers still face barriers to using public transport, and often when a bus approaches the stop where they've been waiting, the priority space is already occupied, perhaps by another wheelchair, buggy, or some luggage. Now, the driver is responsible for asking people to vacate the priority space, and on some of our buses we have like an audio announcement that the driver can press, and it will ask to vacate that space. But it's not within the driver's remit to go beyond that in terms of enforcing it, in case it puts them at danger. So if passengers do refuse, there's not so much they can do. So, and this can result in the wheelchair user having to wait for another bus. And that can significantly delay their journey, making commuting or attending appointments frustrating, and it can feel quite excluding. Next slide, please. So the problem statements that we're looking at predominantly are: how might we foster more reliability and independence for bus users with accessibility needs by giving them real-time information on wheelchair priority space occupancy? And a sort of second follow-up problem statement is: how might we better direct bus passengers to other seats, freeing up priority spaces when required? There's often a lot of spare seats available, but people don't always sit in the seat that's most appropriate for them. They might not know that there's seats available upstairs. So to address these problem statements, TfL aims to develop a system that will be able to detect and communicate the real-time status of this space, and actually prioritizing smartphone and journey planning apps so that we can integrate with those. We have investigated several solutions in this space. So we've done some trials with CCTV analytics, which have proved quite challenging. We've also looked at stereoscopic sensors to address this challenge. So while some trials are currently ongoing, TfL is looking to run further trials with similar technologies, specifically stereoscopic sensors. And we're just really interested to hear from the market, what solutions could be implemented, importantly, that could be rolled out across our entire fleet. Next slide, please. So the wheelchairs are the primary focus for this, but we also are very aware that there's lots of people who travel with buggies, pushchairs, small children, and they face similar challenges. So kind of secondary goal of this is finding a system that can help us identify prams and other objects. So it could be suitcases or whatever it might be, but being able to actually classify and identify those items in the priority space, that's a secondary goal. Because quite often what happens, there might already be one buggy on the bus and the person travelling with that pushchair might have to wait for the next available bus, which can be particularly challenging if they have other children with them or if they're on a tight schedule, perhaps doing the school run. Next slide. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the challenge statement. Looking forward to taking any questions from you in the Q&A.
Great, thank you, Harriet. And lastly, we will be hearing from Paul Bathgate, the Principal Director at RailX, who will be presenting the Scheduling, Automation and Optimisation Challenge.
Thanks, Kirsty. And thank you for the introduction. Before I talk about RailX and the challenge itself, I think it's relevant in this case to give you some context in terms of the challenge. And to some extent, Ryan at the Port of Tynes described part of the supply chain challenges that he faces. Next slide, please. So this slide here represents just a container ship arriving at the Port of Felixstowe. I think it's relevant that the UK imports over 6 million shipping containers per year. And that represents the backbone of trade between the UK and the rest of the world, with the exception of Europe. Those container ships typically arrive at Felixstowe, Southampton, London Gateway, Port of Tyne, Humber, Liverpool, etc. Next slide, please. So of those 6 million containers, typically 90% are moved on road. So you can imagine the issues that creates, particularly as we start to move towards a zero carbon or a low carbon economy. The congestion we're all familiar with, the impact of rising fuel costs, well-publicised driver shortages, and the impact on CO2. Next slide, please. So part of the solution for the UK and for the rest of the world is to move towards low carbon solutions. And in this case is to transfer as much of that volume as possible on existing rail freight services and new rail freight services. So even a diesel engine pulling a train would reduce carbon footprint for that container movement to about 76% compared with an equivalent road journey. And with the increased electrification of the UK rail network, then where we're using electrified solutions, and that drops to 100% saving in carbon. Rail also offers reduced cost, improved reliability, and in many ways, greater flexibility. I'll describe what I mean by that in the following slides. Next slide, please. So to create the modal shift in terms of migrating towards a low carbon economy, RailX has been developed It's essentially a business-to-business marketplace. It has been operational for 2 years. Rail-X has. The platform went live in November last year. And to date, we've moved several thousand containers. So it's a software as a service type platform. And crucially, it includes a final mile. So just to get your head around this is like booking a ticket on a train line. You don't need to know who the operator is. But the difference with Rail-X is once you get off the train, we'll provide that final mile journey to get you towards your end destination. Within the UK network, typically 25% of trains are empty. So Rail-X is filling that empty capacity. So it's an opportunity benefit to the whole industry. We are essentially targeting new to rail customers and SMEs. And importantly, we integrate the rail and road into a managed service. Next slide, please. We haven't managed to capture the whole of the UK market as yet. So we're focused on, as I say, the ports in the south that are highlighted there. They're the main intermodal terminals, although as Port of Tyne just shared with you, they move 25,000 containers through their port. And as the containers move from the ports, we're aiming to get more and more of that volume onto the existing rail services. There are approximately 100 intermodal rail services operating across the UK daily. Next slide, please. On the call, we've also got Tom, our CTO, who's developed Rail-X. It's a digital platform, and I don't propose to go into that in any detail, other than you can think of it in terms of Uberization of freight, or as a train line for freight, or because we're operating on existing capacity, surplus capacity, you might want to think about it in the terms of it's like booking a hotel room where the hotel room's empty, lastminutebooking.com as an example. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges that we face? The fundamental need here is to increase efficiency across all modes of transport, multimodal. So as we move goods between sea, rail, and road, we want to make that as efficient as possible. One of the big impacts that we're experiencing today is late arrival of ships or vessels. And typically from our monitoring, 40% of vessel arrival times are late, and that impacts on the rest of the supply chain, notwithstanding the current issues that we're experiencing in the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, etc. So a ship's ETA effectively, as an estimated time of arrival, impacts on the whole supply chain, and that ultimately is critical for the end customer, particularly where we've got just-in-time services. So within Rail-X, we use a manual intervention to optimize the scheduling of containers from vessels onto trains through to the final mile, which is invariably by road. And what we want to do is replace that manual interface with some kind of automation. Our current staff use what I would consider to be tradecraft, but in making a schedule or a change to a schedule, they're having to think about the capacity on existing train services, the cost across those train services, the impact on CO2. We work with partners to secure that data, the time, lost time and delivery times, and fundamentally the market price. And the market price in this context is largely set by road. I think that is the last slide. It is. So within Rail-X, we've got access to a significant amount of data from across the supply chain. And I think if we can crack this challenge, it has broad implications, not just for the UK, but for the rest of the world. And I'll take any questions in the Q&A session. So thank you, Kirsty.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And thank you to all our challenge owners for taking the time to present the challenges to us. I'm going to walk you through the application and selection process, and then we'll have time to ask any questions at the end, either to the Digital Catapult team or the industry challenge owners. So the application process is fairly simple. If you follow one of our links, either on our website or social media, you'll be taken to a platform called Skipso. First, you will need to create an account if you haven't already. Then you can fill out the application form, which needs to be completed by the 13th of March. Otherwise, your application will not be reviewed. Please, could you check that you receive a confirmation email when you have submitted your application? If you do not receive one, please get in touch with us through the BridgeAI email address, which we'll be sharing at the end. In order to apply, you must meet these minimum requirements. So applicants must be eligible to receive £18,000 in state assistance. Applicants must be a UK-based registered company or prove they are a company that has an establishment in the UK and undertake all activity in the UK. And applicants must develop solutions enabled by AI. Your application will be assessed against 5 criteria. So firstly, relevance and feasibility. The applicant should demonstrate their solution can tackle the challenge selected, and the company has the appropriate technical expertise to deliver the solution. Business strategy. The applicant should be able to articulate the company's business model that drives their AI ML solution implementation and commercialization. Data and code readiness. The applicant should demonstrate that their company has the necessary data ready and has an implementation plan that requires immediate access to computational power. Ethical impact. The applicant should exemplify responsible use and understanding of the impact of their AI ML solution and a strong commitment to ethical AI practices. And lastly, growth potential. The applicant should be capable of identifying clear goals and demonstrating their solution has the potential to scale after the programme. The application form questions are formatted around each criterion to ensure you have the best opportunity to demonstrate that you can meet them. The criteria are equally weighted at 20%, and each criterion will be scored on a range from 0 to 5, with 5 being excellent. The selection process consists of 2 main phases. Firstly, the long listing phase, where we will review your written applications. The Digital Catapult judges will review them, resulting in the selection of shortlisted candidates. The second phase is the shortlisting phase. There will be an interview with the Digital Catapult judges and the relevant industry challenge owners, in which you will need to prepare a short presentation on your tech solutions, and then there will be an opportunity for questions to be asked. Following the interviews, the panel will deliberate and select the cohort. So this is an overview of the timeline for the open call and the programme. So as I mentioned, the call is already live and it will close on the 13th of March. Companies that have interviewed will be notified of their result on the 11th of April, and those successful will begin contracting. The programme launch date is on the 24th of April, and it's in person at the Digital Catapult offices. And then the final showcase is on the 17th of July. The showcase is not at the end of the delivery phase, because after the showcase, we'll look at the next steps with both Digital Catapult and the industry challenge owners. So now we will have time for some questions. So I'll invite all the industry challenge owners to turn your cameras back on. And I will have a look at the question box. Okay, so we've got one question directed for TfL. So to what extent is your bus fleet capable of gathering essential data to improve overall fleet efficiency?
Thanks very much for that question. I think I will hand that question over to Anwesha. She's available.
Yes. Could you please repeat the question, Christy?
Of course. To what extent is your bus fleet capable of gathering essential data to improve overall fleet efficiency?
Is this directed to the problem we have presented, or is it like an overall question? Is it for the wheelchair priority space occupancy that we're talking about here?
I do not have any more than the question that has been asked.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So I'll take it that I'll make the assumption that it is directed for the problem statement that we presented, and we have the CCTV network on our buses existing, and we have tried in our proof of concept stage to see if we can utilize that input to build a classification model to see if it's a wheelchair or if others, or if the wheelchair space is not occupied by anything, but hasn't worked for us like the way we expected. The efficiency, the accuracy hasn't been that high. So we are looking for other solutions which can be provided by the market in this regard, if that answers the question.
Thank you.
We are also looking at stereoscopic sensors, by the way, but for automated passenger counting, that is bus crowding data, but we have not yet conducted the proof of concept with stereoscopic sensors for wheelchair priority space. And we are planning to do that soon. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that. The next question, do you want the projects to be led by SMEs? Can they have academic or larger companies as partners? So SMEs can have a partner, but we ask only to have a lead company. And a project can be led by academics only if they are a registered business. Okay. For RailX, how much control does RailX have on the freight timetable?
Very, very, very little. So just like the passenger timetable, the rail freight timetable is set by the various freight operating companies. Essentially, there are 4 in the UK that we work with. And that rail timetable is adjusted twice per year. So every 6 months, there's a refresh. So we seek to if you like, it's not quite this case, but we buy and sell the empty capacity on existing rail freight services is one way to view this.
Thank you, Paul. So another question, can a company that currently doesn't work in the transport sector apply? So I can answer this one. Yes, you can apply. Even though this accelerator focuses on transport, we do welcome applicants from other industries because they may have solutions that can be adapted and extended to benefit the transport industry. So considering the business challenges we developed with the industry challenge owners, we believe we could find suitable companies who haven't engaged with the transport sector yet, but could also address these challenges. And a question for Port of Tyne. Do you have a regular exchange of data with Rotterdam, whose efficiency is renowned?
We don't at the moment, but we do have a rich supply of data within the container terminal itself. This, I guess, would be the training data for the AI application. That goes back a long time. At the moment, we get a message around about 2 days before a vessel arrives, essentially saying we want this container out of the container terminal. Obviously, by that stage, the container is already placed within the terminal itself. So there's 2 kind of aspects of the problem. The first is a combinatorial optimization problem in terms of where do we put the container inside the terminal. And the second half, and probably the relevant part here, is how do we improve the predictions when the container comes into the terminal in terms of the expected behavior of the container. If we understand when we are likely to need it out, that gives us great information about where to put that inside the container terminal. So no, we don't work with Rotterdam directly at the moment, but we note their efficiency here.
I think it's worth recognising as well. Thanks, Stephen. Great answer there. Good question as well. There is some major differences between the plant and equipment and the sort of solutions that the Port of Tyne have got. We're not really comparing apples with apples. So Rotterdam will be using RTGs and probably some automation in there. We're not that quite advanced. We've got a piece of kit, heavy plant called a reach stacker, and we use empty box handlers as well. So there's some constraints with those different sort of solutions in terms of container handling. I think that's worth noting as well. Good question.
Great, thank you for answering that. We've got a couple more questions for TfL. So one is, you already use video analytics. Why are video analytics not capable of addressing this issue?
Okay, I'll take that one, Christy. Well, as I already mentioned, we are in the proof of concept stage for bus crowding, that is automated passenger counting, a part of which is a wheelchair occupancy space as well. And we have tried using video analytics for the CCTV footage we are getting from our bus network. But the problem in this regard that we are facing is we are trying to get three kinds of inputs here. That is, one is wheelchair space available, occupied by others, or wheelchair space occupied by wheelchairs. But the problem here is we are getting only two types of inputs here. That is, either it's wheelchair space, wheelchair space might be available, or it might be occupied by something else, or the wheelchair space is occupied by wheelchair. We are not getting the three desired inputs that we want here. The reason being that for the latter, what is happening is there are too many false positives here that we are getting from the classification model built by our supplier, and that is why they are trying not to categorize it further into wheelchair space available and wheelchair space available by others. So that is one crucial problem we are facing here. I hope that answers the question.
We've got one additional question for TfL.
Yeah, sure.
Following on from that, we've got, what type of sensors are already used by TfL?
For automated passenger counting, we have not installed any sensors till now. In the feasibility stage, we have tried stereoscopic sensors, which uses 3D imaging technology. But when we are still, in the nascent stage of the project, the deliverables being in 2025 or 26, and it will depend on the technology preferred by our bus operators, which will determine what kind of sensors we'll be using in our buses, and that is when we'll be installing them. We do not have any sensors installed in our buses as of yet, except Route 63, which is the hotbed for all our experiments.
Thank you. We've got some more questions for the Port of Tyne. So would robustness to change be a factor in your prediction models, i.e. a ship not coming in when it should?
Robustness to change. It's an interesting point. Yes, essentially, we would need to be considerate of that. It is quite volatile in terms of the reliability of berthing windows, etc., etc. The weather it causes delays, it causes issues, sea swells, and there's numerous other sort of key drivers around how accurate those windows are. But fundamentally, the solution that we need is land-based. Essentially, it's within the container terminal. As I've said, irrespective of delays and disruption, we do handle circa 25,000 containers a year. So there is plenty of activity, and we are currently our reorg sort of level is around about that 35%, and there's an opportunity to get that to sort of less than 20% as an industry average. So that's really what we're looking for.
We've got another question for Port of Tyne. So what data are you looking to leverage for this optimization? i.e. will it be based on physical sensors, updated spreadsheets, or even a bit of both?
So there's lots of data sets at the moment that we don't utilize. So if a vessel is coming into the port to give out containers, they let us know the IDs of those containers. Those IDs are globally persistent. So every port across the supply chain uses those same identifiers. So there's the potential to integrate international data sets, for example, from the IMO, about the previous activity of that container. That will allow us, if we bring those parameters in, to give a best guess about when we're likely to need that container back out of the terminal. So that's kind of the main thing at the moment. There are internal data sets that we can use in the model, but there's a lot of international data sets that we're not using at the moment as well.
Thank you. The next question I can answer. So can we apply for more than one challenge? We strongly recommend that you apply for only one challenge. But if you do wish to apply for multiple, then you'll have to fill in separate application forms per challenge. And please keep in mind that if you are selected, you'll only be chosen to develop one of those challenges. You won't be picked for both. But yeah, we do recommend that you sort of put your energy into one challenge. So it's up to you. We do have another question for Ryan. All ports are terrorist targets. Will AI, ML, DL help to improve your risk assessment level?
I'm trying to find in my mind the link here between the opportunity and potential terrorist activity, threat levels, etc. I don't see a link there. In honesty, I think the main objectives here and the principal goals are essentially commercial and from a local safety point of view. I don't see any synergies there, if I'm being absolutely honest, unless I may be missing an angle or a perspective on that one. But I don't see the link. So I'm saying no.
Okay, thank you. A question for RailX. Would this desired system work to inform a user, and in which case would explainability of any model be a factor and its adoption?
So RailX, I mean, fundamentally communicates across the supply chain. So we take the data from the shipping companies. So we've got real-time and predictive data around ETAs. We have all the rail timetable within RailX. We have the customer's requirement, i.e. what time do they want the container to be delivered. And we've got all the metadata associated with the container. So once we set the supply chain in motion, any changes or updates, we provide the relevant element within the supply chain, that information, which includes a customer, obviously. So the answer, I think, is yes. We keep everybody that needs to know informed as to any changes, and we provide them with a real-time visibility, or will do, throughout the whole supply chain.
Thank you, Paul. Another question that I can answer. Does the accelerator provide funding or investment opportunities? So this accelerator has in-kind contributions from our accelerator partners that I listed earlier, so like the cloud services and the legal and regulatory partners. But then we also will have investment opportunities at the showcase, as there will be potential investors there who will get to hear your pitches and demos at the end of the program. Another question for RailX. If a shipment is late and RailX cannot fill capacity it's bought, are RailX more interested in filling this now empty space or finding new capacity for the late shipment?
Yes. So, I mean, that's the hub of the challenge that we have. When I said we buy and sell the empty space, it wasn't quite true. We acquire the empty space once we have a customer that wants to buy it. So it's a transaction, it's a marketplace. So the hub of the challenge is to map container movements from a vessel onto available spaces across a number of rail services. That's part of the challenge, but also then linking it to the final mile solution. So it's the final mile by road. So it is across all three modes. I'm not sure if I explained that clearly, but yes, it's about mapping a container onto an available slot on an existing rail service.
Great, thank you. I'll just give it a minute to see if any more questions come in. But thank you everyone for being so engaged and yeah, putting so many questions in the chat box. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I think we will wrap up, and I'll just quickly talk to you about the next steps. So as you can see here, we've got 2 QR codes. If you didn't get an opportunity to ask your question or something else comes up as you're filling out the application form, please do book in time with Digital Catapult. You can do so with the QR code on the left. But the program briefing page contains all the information on the challenges and the program itself, and also has a link to the frequently asked questions page. Great, so thank you all for joining. Thank you to our industry challenge owners for presenting, and we look forward to reading your applications. Zoom will share a satisfaction survey with you, so please could you fill this out? It's very short and we'd really appreciate that. So thank you all for joining, and yeah, good luck with your applications.